Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're taking another look at construction on the Surrey Langley Skytrain Project. For those of you who are new to this project, it's a 16-kilometer extension of the Expo line from King George Station in downtown Surrey to downtown Langley City. The elevated route will have 8 new stations, costing just under 6 billion Canadian dollars. Major construction started in November 2024, with an expected opening date in late 2029. Starting off at the first new station, Green Timbers, a lot of work has been done in the past few months. Precast concrete beams for both the platform and concourse level have been lifted into place. To facilitate this, Fraser Highway has been closed between 140th Street and 96th Avenue since April 1st. The closure was extended from the end of October to December 14th to complete the necessary work. Taking a closer look, the concourse beams connect to the main columns via a corbel. Temporary scaffolding was put in place while all the beams were lifted and connected. On the outside edge, these steel beams connect the concourse level directly to the vents above. It's a carefully engineered balancing act that removes the need for additional support columns. We also get a good look at all the holes in the vent that will be used to pass post-tensioning cables through the guideway segments, but more on that in a bit. On the concourse level, there are precast pits for the elevators that will connect the concourse and platform levels. From above, we can see the outlines of each individual precast floor slab that fills in the gaps between the concourse beams. East of the station, 8 larger columns with oddly shaped crossheads are nearing completion. These will support a pocket track on the south side of the guideway used for storing out-of-service trains and maintenance equipment. Further east, more irregular columns have been completed, with a long line of them leading towards the next station. At 152nd Street Station, the Surrey Sprinter gantry launched at the end of September. Heading west, it will be responsible for just over 900 segments between here and the current terminus at King George Station. Before the gantry headed west, it built 2 spans to the east of the station. That is so when the other gantry from the east arrives here, it can be disassembled away from the station without impacting station construction. The span over 152nd Street was constructed overnight to minimize impacts on traffic. Looking closely at the guideway, the track slabs are precast in place at the guideway facility. We can see the outlines where the track pads will be installed and the holes for the supports for the center walkway. As the gantry heads west, work can begin on station construction. Groundwork is underway in preparation for major construction. Across the street, an area has been cleared where the elevated pedestrian bridge will land. Looking east, the orange squares on the ground cover the completed piles for guideway columns. Over at Fleetwood Station, the columns and vents for the station section of guideway are complete. Some excavation for station construction is taking place in preparation for foundations, and crews are at work installing drainage. Due to the elevation profile here, columns coming in from the east are much taller, while the ones heading out to the west are shorter. That's to account for the grade changes while still allowing for the 82.5 meter long platforms to be level. Some of the pillars are very short on the west side. Here we can see the exposed rebar that will be used to create the pads that each span sits on. All of the columns between here and the next station are complete. At Bakerview 166th Street Station, the Fleetwood Flyer, which launched back in July, has completed 12 spans. Much like 152nd Street, after completing the station spans, 3 were built to the east before heading back to the west where it is now. The 440-ton gantry will lift just over 1,000 segments on its journey to 152nd Street. We were lucky enough to catch a segment being lifted. First, workers who are tied to the gantry with safety lines climb on top of the segment to be lifted and install yellow lifting brackets to the segment. A telehandler helps lift them into place. Then, the trolley crane, which rides along on rails on top of the girders, lowers its lifting attachment. It's then guided into place and connected to the lifting brackets. Next, the workers climb down and the 28-ton segment is lifted. It's rotated 90 degrees to align with the other segments. While that is happening, the truck with the lowboy trailer that transported the segment to site pulls out and heads back to the factory for another segment. Moments later, the next one arrives. Meanwhile, the trolley crane rolls the segment into place. Once there, steel cables with yellow clamps are lowered and connected to the lifting brackets. They'll hold the piece through the next several steps, which we'll see further down the line. Underneath the completed spans, the cast-in-place pads are under construction. A jack and cribbing are used to lift and support the span while workers prepare the pads that the guideway sits on. Each pad is different to account for the slope and angle of each span. A bridge bearing pad made of rubber and steel sits on top of the cast-in-place pad and supports the guideway. At the station, more precast pieces have been installed to make up the barrier between the two tracks. Using a common station design and many precast elements saves time and money on a project of this size. Looking at the sections of completed guideway, we see another close-up of the holes and track pad spots that are precast as part of the track slabs. On either side of the station, there are sections of guideway that don't have a precast track slab. That's because there will be switches installed here. You can see their outlines, which need to be built in place with custom track slab to ensure correct alignment. In the last video, we viewed the protrusions from the easternmost bend. Now that the guideway has been built, we can see how that all fits together to support the span and prevent it from shifting during a seismic event. Under the station, excavation has begun on foundation for station elements. We'll see a lot more of this over the coming months as the station contractors move in to build them. Heading down into the ALR, there's a lot to see. A couple of crossheads on columns east of the Serpentine River are complete. Between them, piles are in place to support one of the future propulsion substations that feeds electricity to the line. The duct bank that runs along the entire length of the route providing power to these substations is more than 50% complete as of this fall. At the intersection with Highway 15, one column has its rebar cage in place. A steel span over the highway is scheduled to be installed here in the first half of 2026. It's the only one on the line that will be made of steel. We saw another section of guideway being transported up Highway 15 from the precast facility. The large holes here are where the post-tensioning cables will pass through to compress the spans. Further east, crews are still working on installing some of the deepest driven piles on the route at nearly 100 meters deep. Here, another section of pile casing is being welded onto the previous one before being driven into the ground. This piece is marked up with the depth in meters. And here's a look at the wet clay material that's excavated from the piles. Some of the large bends are taking shape along this section. That's because this stretch will be up to 4 tracks wide to accommodate connections to the South Fraser Storage and Maintenance Facility, or SFMSF for short, formerly known as OMC5, which has had its site cleared of trees, vegetation, and peat. Sand and gravel are being trucked in to prep the surface before the main preload begins. Several bulldozers and rollers are spreading and compacting the material. Main construction on the new facility isn't expected to start until at least 2029. Heading east out of the ALR, we arrive at Hillcrest 184th Street Station, where not one, but 2 gantries have launched working in opposite directions. The Clayton Clipper is heading west through the ALR, finishing at Bakerview 166th Street, and will lift around 1,350 segments. Whereas the Langley Launcher will head east to Langley and lift about 1,150 segments. It's the Langley Launcher that's been catching some attention online recently for its apparent proximity to these townhomes. But as seen here from the pathway below between the two, there's still a reasonable amount of space. It does make for a great viewing experience of the bonding process. Segments are bonded together using a high-strength epoxy that is applied to the notches on one side of the segment. The teeth from the next segment then made up with those notches. Once in place, steel rods inside are attached and pull the segments together during the curing process. The Clayton Clipper was bonding a span at the same time. Looking to the west, many columns have been completed, with 2 bends under construction where the line crosses from the middle of Fraser Highway to the north side before the station. Over at Clayton Station, piles and columns have been completed and all 5 bents are in various stages of construction. Looking west, the line of approaching columns is getting closer. While the area immediately surrounding the station appears rather rural, the new Clayton corridor plan is expected to be completed in 2026. It'll be in line with the provincial TOD rules, adding significant density around the station. It also encompasses a larger area than previously proposed to help build a more complete community. At 64th Avenue, crews are drilling piles for the guideway columns. Drilled piles with reusable pile casings are the preferred choice in urban areas because they cause less noise and vibration compared to driven piles. They are also better at handling the harder soils and rocks found in the area. At Willoughby Station, work is underway on the piles for the station columns. This large rebar cage is being prepared to be lowered into the pile casing. Smaller rebar cages for the columns are already in place. At the final station on the line, Langley City Centre, the station contractor has been busy. Both the station and the last 250 meters of guideway are being built by the station contractor. Pile caps for the station columns have been built and rebar cages for the columns have been installed. A pile cap ties a group of piles together and supports the column, evenly distributing the force into the piles. Some columns have already been poured. Grade beams will be built in between the pile caps to lock them all together, making it one continuous structure. West of 203 Street on Industrial Avenue, piles have been installed for the guideway columns leading up to the station. Pile caps will be built here on top of these as well. That concludes our look at the Surrey Langley Skytrain construction in December of 2025. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time.